Hello everyone, welcome back to another devlog of my game Project F.U.N. For the last 3 months, I have been trying to complete the main features of the game and so far it has been very fruitful in Godot. Also, currently I'm visiting my parents after a very long time, years that is, so I'm super duper excited. This is my mother.
Hello.
This is my father.
Hello.
And this is my little sister.
Hello.
For those that are new to the channel, I am Kamran Wali and I am solo developing my game Project F.U.N, which stands for Firearm Unleashing Nonsense. It's a shoot-'em-up FPS game with permadeath, so once you are out, you are out. There is no coming back. Well, you can by starting all over again. The game is also going to be like roguelite, so some upgrades will carry over to the next gameplay. There will be a lot of bullets flying around in the game, which will make you constantly move around. You can also use different weapons at the same time, and they will be randomly generated during gameplay. Earn in-game coins to unlock new weapons and skills. Every stage will also be random, keeping the game fresh and exciting. For this project, I have decided to use Diegetic UI, which means there will be no 2D UI elements during gameplay. Here is an old project of mine where I used Diegetic UI to show players' health and ammo in the game world and not the traditional 2D UI elements. To me, Diegetic UI gives much more better feel to a game and does not clutter the screen with too much data but keeps the gameplay screen clean. Diegetic UI only works if it is implemented well, otherwise it can be very confusing to understand and some data might also be overlooked by the player. As I have mentioned before, the player will be able to use multiple weapons at the same time. There will be one main weapon at the start and slowly the player will be able to attach more weapons to the main weapon during combat gameplay. These secondary attached weapons will go away once the player completes a stage or dies. Let me explain how this works. Every time when an enemy is destroyed, some experience point is gained by the player. Once a certain threshold has been reached, the game will pause, except the player, and the player will be able to select a random weapon from 3 choices. Each weapon will also contain certain attributes like adding health, speed, armor, etc. Once a weapon has been selected, only then will it attach to the main weapon. I will later show a small animation of the weapon attachment feature. I have already done the calculation for where the weapon will be attached once weapon selection is done. I have also implemented the enemy AI. I have used Godot's 3D navigation to move the enemies around and use my own finite state machine feature to give behavior to the enemy AIs. In my game, there are 2 types of enemy, melee type and range type. As the name suggests, the melee type enemies will come close to you to attack you. I have been experimenting with different type of melee enemies. Let me explain them briefly. The first one is a forward melee attack type. They basically wield a spear-like or sword-like weapon and stab or poke at the player once they are in attacking range. Then there is arc melee attack type enemies where they do their attacks in a circular kind of motion. There is also melee spinners where they keep spinning the melee weapons to hurt the player. Finally, there is also accelerated melee attack type where it could be any of the melee type but will slowly accelerate to confuse the player a bit and will force the player to use different strategy to deal with them. Later I will add enemy melee type where the weapon starts to extrude out of the enemy, also a type where the enemy points its weapon at the player continuously or just during attack. The range type enemies will attack the player from a farther distance. Whenever the player enters a certain distance threshold, only then the enemy will start to fire its weapon at the player. I have also been experimenting with different range type enemies. Let me explain them briefly as well. The first one is forward firing only, which means the enemy only fires their weapon the way they are facing. These are very basic range type enemies. I will later give them different attributes so that the player will need to adjust their strategy constantly against them. Then there is range rotation enemy types. These enemies are able to aim their weapons at the player. Some of them either have full rotations or have rotational limit. Finally, there is turret type range enemies. These one basically fires a barrage of bullets at the last position of the player. Later on, I will make them have very high damage as they will be easier to dodge from, but a group of them might be challenging. I will also add enemies that will continuously move around and fire at the player and some aerial type as well. Let me talk a little about the progress of my tool CodeOptPro. Since last devlog, I have also been updating CodeOptPro as well. Any features that seem to me like it could be used in any other projects, I have been adding those features to CodeOptPro. Some of the features I have added are Update Manager, Auto Setup, and Pooling System. I will just briefly explain what each one of them does, and if you're interested in learning more about them, then I have shared the link to my tool CodeOptPro in the description below. Update managers are basically a system I have created where multiple objects share either one process or physics process. This reduces the need for using many process or physics process. For example, if we look into my enemy scene, you can see that the enemy script and weapon script are sharing one process, thus removing the need to use two or more. If any more objects requires to use process in enemy scene, then I will share the local update manager with them. Auto setup is a system I have created where certain automation I require before a game starts in the editor. This I needed to reduce error in setting up objects. To use this feature, you need to enable the auto setup plugin of CodeOptPro and then either click the manual setup or play button from the plugin's UI. For example, in my script called base weapon pool, if I ever forget to give the resource reference to the size preload, then the auto setup system will automatically set a default reference to the variable. Pooling system is the system where objects are reused to save performance. I have added this feature to CodeOptPro as well, so now certain objects can be reused. For example, this scene have 3 enemies and only 1 bullet. Using the CodeOptPro's pooling system, all 3 of them get to share the bullet one by one. I'm also getting the hang of using Godot, getting a good idea on how it works. Also, I took the advice from you all in using Visual Code as the platform for writing my codes on. I also got the synthwave, which makes the code have neon glow. So far, I'm really enjoying Visual Code to write my codes on. There are many more main features to add to the game, like using Blender models in the game, procedural animations, shaders, etc. I haven't touched these features yet in Godot, but as I said before in my previous devlog, I will only learn about them when I need them, and this theory is somewhat working. I'm planning to finish making this game by the end of this year, hopefully, and then we'll make a part 2 of the game. I already have a good idea of the storyline of the game, which I will only share a little bit of later on. Alright, that is it for this devlog. By next devlog, I will try to get the procedural animation done, especially the true first-person view. Anyway, take care, stay safe, and ciao!